Hello once again. Today is the Greymon tribal deck profile I've been promising for a couple of videos now. There is gameplay on my channel a couple videos back of this deck playing against a Digivolution deck. My buddy Phil from Phil Plays was playing this deck, and as you'll see in that video, he did quite well. It's the first time in probably ever that a Greymon focused deck is functional in the Digi-Battle card game, thanks to a lot of support from the Digi-Battle NEXT GEN fan releases. And I just wanted to do a deck profile for it, kind of show it off and show you what these new cards can do for a Greymon focused deck. Of course, this deck does include the Baby Digimon, the new card type that was created to round out the Digi-Battle NEXT GEN card set. This one gives any Digimon that you have with Greymon in the name an additional 50 points to their power. So to play the game, you start this card face up, you play your Agamon on top of it for your starting rookie like you normally would, and then any card with Greymon in its name has 50 extra power. As you can imagine, with a Greymon tribal deck, we've got a number of those. But of course, we're going to start with our Agamon. This would be your kind of initial startup for the game, set up just like so. Basically giving Agamon this power. These powers don't mean anything, of course, but this power will carry through the rest of your stack, so this is a great way to stack them to keep that visible and easy to remember. Agamon's got 140 power for his defend attack, 230 for claw attack, and 380 for pepper breath. He's a decent, kind of balanced starter. His 140 is a little low, but it's okay. You're pretty much always not good against your own color. He's just kind of particularly bad against it. That said, pretty good card, and a good spot to start, especially because you're very likely just not going to stay here. You're going to hopefully start with one of your champion levels. In this deck, we're going to run 3. The first one we've got is a Greymon. This is one of the new cards from the next gen releases. It is, you'll see its powers get much better here. He is actually best against his color, unique to some of the card types, but nice thing for him, Agamon offline 1 card. This is an option that the deck has, of course, to go into. You don't really want to go here because a Greymon doesn't actually go anywhere from here. None of the other cards in the deck allow digivolution from a Greymon. He's basically just a champion in case you lose your Greymon. What you really want to do, of course, is go into Greymon. This is your dream. If you can make this the card you go into, that's the goal. You offline 2 cards, got great stats all the way down the board, and also gets plus 50 power. So 270, 390, and 470 are super good stats for a champion level, and that makes it a lot easier to stick this guy to the board. He's your kind of go-to. It is an offline 2, which is a shame, but as you can see, this is kind of where the problems with a strictly official release Greymon deck become apparent. Only Agamon can become this guy, and you'll see later that he pretty much only digivolves into something else. Poor Greymon. One of the cards that Digi-Battle NEXT GEN Jasper released was a data version of Greymon, which would allow the deck to have a second Greymon. It's one of the only NEXT GEN cards I don't actually own. It's a shame. I really want to try to get one, but it would be a nice add for this deck. We have one Devimon as well. Devimon and Greymon are the only 2 cards in this deck besides Agamon, of course, that don't have Greymon in their name, but Agamon does turn into him for 1 card. Great powers, 390, 390, good balance there. Doesn't break 4 for anything, which is a shame, but a good kind of consistent value there, and 260 is not too bad either. The reason, though, that we have a Devimon is for the Mega forms, or the Ultimate forms in the deck. We've got here the Virus type Metal Greymon, Greymon, and Devimon. So both of these forms can go into this. It's really the reason we added it. And basically be 2 outs into getting into this Metal Greymon. This is the worst of the two Metal Greymons in the deck, but having a second Metal Greymon is good. Giving him 50 extra power is good too. 360, 500, or sorry, 490, and actually 400 are pretty great stats. But really, we would like to see the rare Metal Greymon, the gold stamped version. This one only digivolves from Greymon, so it's a little bit harder to get into this one. This is where this guy comes in handy. Gives you a second way up the chain. But in a perfect world, we'd go Agamon into Greymon into this Metal Greymon. This would be your dream, but we've got some other options in case you can't. 290, 440, 440. As we mentioned with the Devimon having 390, 390, having consistent numbers like that is great. Knowing that you don't have like a particularly, like a great, a medium, and a bad color is always good. Having two colors be your best stat is always powerful. And finally, we have a Rise Greymon. Rise Greymon has a really big red power. 470 is huge for an ultimate. And again, it'd be 520 actually with the Koromon baby. You can't go anywhere from this form either, so this really is kind of a last-ditch effort, but it's got almost mega level powers, especially if you're fighting against a red-focused vaccine-type deck. It's a great option to go into. It's worth just sticking this level and staying there. But it's just another Greymon. It's another out in case you didn't get the perfect lineup. You have one more option to go into. And then Megas, we have 3. Of course, we've got War Greymon. This is the Swedish promo. The Swedish cards were released in English, but this one is has a special ability score 300 when digivolving to this form. That's kind of the standard special ability. 350, 500, and 540. Greymon in its name, so an additional 50 power. This card's pretty good, and plus getting 300 power when you get here is awesome. And then, I mean, who doesn't love War Greymon? Iconic, absolutely iconic Digimon. We have another new card here, Victory Greymon. Metal Greymon again is kind of the only thing that gets here. Same with this. But you score 300 when you get to this form as well. 560, 510, 320. As you can see, it's pretty comparable stats. The 560, meaning you have 610 as a power against red types, is awesome. One of the things that's cool about this deck is both this Ultimate and this Mega have great kind of toolbox availability to being able to, like, all right, well, I'm not... This War Greymon's good if you're playing against something that's not a red type. These are great if you're playing into a deck that's going to play red. Both of these are good. It's a shame that Rise Greymon can't go into Victory Greymon. That would be really cool, but not really part of his chain. We'd have to have Shine Greymon, and he's not as good, I think, as Victory. But we've got the Victory Greymon there. And the final card, and the major annoyance of the deck, we've got Agamon, the Bond of Bravery. This is also not a Greymon. I guess I forgot to mention this one earlier, but it digivolves from an Agumon and a tie. So you're on your rookie form. If you have the tie option card, you can skip straight into Mega. You get 300 points when you digivolve to this level. Decent stats. 700 is huge. 620, 430. Good power. It doesn't get the buff from the baby because it's not a Greymon, but you can turn 1, have 300 points. That's really, really strong. That's really powerful. Then if this loses and you discard it, then you just kind of shuffle through your deck again, see it again, play it 600, 900. You basically have to kill one guy all game long to not just win by playing this card 3 times. And you'll see in the video that happened, that's exactly what happened. The strategy of just kind of keeping the deck alive so that you can make this happen is very, very viable for this Greymon deck. That is the end of the Digimon in the deck. We'll get into a couple of the option cards now. First off, of course, then we do have to have the tie power option card. This is from the Shreddies cereal promos. Shreddies is a cereal that I think it was specifically a foreign, not a U.S. cereal. I don't recall Shreddies at all, but it did come with cereal. Digivolve Agamon or Greymon to the next level, regardless of the requirements. This card allows you to exchange one card on the Digivolve zone with one card on the offline. So you play this card. Nice thing about this. So you set this card down in your Digivolve zone. You put your Digimon wherever you'd like to go into, and then you Digivolve into them. An Agamon into something, or a Greymon into something. Then, this card allows you to exchange one card in your Digivolve zone with a card on offline. So you take this card, put it in your offline pile, and then take the top card of your offline pile back to your hand, and it just replaces itself. So that's an awesome power, on top of basically being able to get Greymon or Agamon around any Digivolve requirements. If you can use this to go into Greymon, you don't have to discard 2 cards off the top of your deck, which is awesome. It's not as cool because you'll not have anything to grab with this, but if you do that on turn 2 or something, it's fine. You're a little bit behind, but it at least gets you a card. I wouldn't recommend that. It's nice to not lose the 2 cards, but being able to replace this with something is also good. I would wait till you're using it when you don't have a Digivice or something like that. Speaking of Digivices, we have 3. We have red, we have yellow, and we have red-yellow. There are a lot of Digimon in this deck that require Digivices. This needs a red, this needs a red, this needs a red, this needs a red, this needs a yellow, and then these guys are all offline. So we've got a lot of guys who need a red Digivice. So we've got 2 chances in our 30 kind of cards to make that happen. Obviously there's a lot of guys that need it, but you only need 1 of each of those levels, so sticking these are good. The tie lets you kind of skip one of those options if you need to. And we have a crest tag, of course. This skips you from champion to ultimate regardless of the requirements, so this kind of acts as one of the Digivices for you. And the turn you play this, you can also stick tags in it for additional power. I mean, I've said it before in other videos, you're not going to play a Digi-Battle deck, I don't think, or I don't think you should, without running crest tag. Some force effects power option cards. The red, yellow, and green, as I talk about in every one of these videos, play these. Don't ever not play the 3 offensives. They just change your attack color to whatever the color of this card is. Sometimes the power that you are supposed to get is trash, and you're like, man, I'm fighting against a red Digimon, my power's 190. If only I was green, I'd have 400 power. Well, now you do. Just, yeah, play these in every deck. Never don't play those. Then we've got 2 new offensive, one offensive, one defensive card added by the wonderful Next Gen support. This one adds 100 power. It changes your power to green and adds 100 power to your green Digimon. So, super good. Changes your power to green is pretty much exactly this card. So you essentially get 2 copies of this. But if the Digimon was already green, then it gets an additional 100 power. As you saw from our deck, we don't have that. So this is not the purpose of this card in this deck. I guess technically our baby is green, but irrelevant. The purpose of this is it's just a second copy of Switch to green. 2 copies of Green Offensive is good. We have a lot of green attacks that are pretty good. Some of them are our best attacks, so having the option to go to that 2 times per stack is very good. Also, Defensive C. Change your Digimon power to yellow and 100 points to your yellow Digimon. To your yellow Digimon power, I'm sorry. Is that what this one does too? Man, maybe I messed that up. Oh wow, I just misspoke. I just lied to your face. Good thing I didn't play this deck. Anyway, so this card changes your power to green and adds 100 points to that power. So that's even better than what I thought it was. So you take one of these Digimon, for example, Say you're red, you're fighting a red, you got 470. In this case, you wouldn't want to, say you're fighting a yellow, there you go, 320. This will switch you to green. It's going to give you, switch you to 400 power, give you 100 points, so you'll go to 150. Or sorry, to 500, and then you'll have 50 from the baby, so you'll be at 550. That's super good, and even better than I was recalling that it was. Awesome. This one does the same thing, but for yellow. Also good. Our red is, there isn't actually a red one of these. And I think maybe it's just because statistically the red powers are good kind of anyway. So that might have been why they didn't do a red one, but there isn't a red one. There are, however, some Power Blast cards left to run in the deck. We run Black Gears, I've told you before. Play this card, gives you a free 100 power. Next Gen gave us Spiritual Ring, gives you a free 100 power. Awesome. Card remains on the power port until you either choose to send it offline, lose a deal, get voided by opponent, or your online deck is reduced to 0. Don't use this with a rookie. Don't use this with a mega. Fine, whatever. This you can use with a mega, and it stays in play. It just stays on the board. Gives you 100 points permanently, as long as you don't get rid of it, or it gets removed, or you run out of the cards in your deck. Crazy. Absolutely powerful card. We've got 2 of the crest tags, Friendship and Courage, plus 50 points, plus 50 points. If the crest tag does happen to be out, you get an additional 100 points to your score. If the crest tag happens to be out, you get Fly and get an extra 50 points on your green power. Most of the time, these are just going to be get 50 plus an extra 50 points. I've said this in a lot of videos before with these crest cards. Additional cards that just give you like plus power is really powerful in this game. Who would have guessed? Power is powerful. Whoa, crazy concept. These are both just good at doing that. If you have the tag out and you get to use the second effect, extra bonus, but never the goal. You know, it's always just kind of icing on the cake. The new card that we got here, Resist Downgrade. Play when the online deck is exhausted. Your Digimon will remain at its current Digimon level without downgrading to Rookie. To use this card, send 10 cards offline from the replenished online deck. So in Digi-Battle, when you run out of deck, you have to shuffle everything that's in play into your discard pile, shuffle it into your deck, and start over. This card says, no you don't. You do have to take 10 of those cards, put them in the discard pile, so your deck is essentially smaller a second time, but you're going to stay at whatever level you're at for a much longer period of time. This is especially great if you get to hit a mega level and just kind of ride it out. One of the things that's awesome about the megas in this deck, of course, as we talked about with the Bond of Friendship, you have an extremely easy to reach mega level. You can hit this on turn 1, and then if you can just stay on your mega level forever, and then deck out, and then start the deck over and still be on this level for a while, I mean, that you're going to win fights just over and over again, just based on how strong this power is by itself. This card alone makes this deck worth playing. On the topic of downgrades, we run our own copy of Downgrade. Downgrade either your champion or your opponent's champion to Rookie. You're never really going to downgrade your champion, although if you are at a Greymon and you get your Greymon stuff all in hand, it may be worth dropping down from a Greymon back to Agamon so you can go through your Greymon line. That's a very valid option, and it's one of the things you can do with this card. But more often than not, it's just going to be turn your opponent's champion into a Rookie and just punish them more for it. It's a very rude card. You like get to your mega, you're sitting here, they're like, all right, well, I'm going to go to champion, and you're like, well, you're not. I'm still going to hit your Rookie for 700 freaking power. Rude card. Bomb Dive. When confronting an opponent with the battle type green or yellow, add 100 points to your Digimon power until the end of duel. To use this card, you have to have special ability Fly. Green or yellow, I mean not red, but basically 66% of cards in the game that you could come up against will give you an additional 100 power. Very, very strong. Pretty much every Digimon in the deck, except for basically this guy, have Fly. So almost every Digimon can benefit from the extra 100 power. You give that 100 power to a Digimon, and yeah, that's just strong. It's same thing with Black Gears being the free 100 points. This is that again, but a little bit more specific. We essentially get 2.5 versions of Black Gears. I'm totally okay with that. Final cards in the deck, we've got Power Freeze, Sleepy Greymon, absolute must-run staple. Void an opponent's Digivolve or Force Effects card, send it offline. So you void any of these that I tell you are great every single time we talk about it. You can you can void a Digivice, you can void a tie, you can void someone else's Tamer card. I mean, there's so many things that this card just hits. You have to play this card. Inversely, Option Eater, void an opponent's Power Blast or Force Effects card, send it offline. This card you pretty much have to run to negate this card. A lot of times you'll hold this card and just wait until they drop Power Freeze that would ruin a very important turn for you, and you can just say, no, I would like to keep it. Alternatively, though, you can run this card in battle to make sure that if you think your opponent's going to play like the next card we're going to look at, for example, Even Steven. If you think your opponent's going to play one of these, stop the duel. All Digimon on the duel zone stay, and all power option cards go offline. No points are scored. Basically, just kind of like the battle didn't happen. If you're like, no, I really want this battle to happen, I'm going to beat the hell out of you if it does. So they're going to play this, and you're like, nope. And the battle continues to go. That's a super strong effect, too. Most of the time, though, you're going to use these cards to kind of counteract each other. But this card, being just a counterspell, is super strong. It's two different versions of a counterspell, essentially, but they both have incredibly valuable purposes. And Even Steven, I just kind of breezed over this card to kind of explain this one, but just leaving cards in play so that the battle never happened. There are a ton of times where you'll get beaten, you'll go back to your rookie, you're like, damn, I'm stuck on Agamon again. Well, I'll get my Greymon, go into my Greymon, and my opponent's still on their Mega Form, and I'm just going to get my shit rocked. You don't want to fight that fight. You know you would lose that fight. You know you're going to lose that battle. They're way too strong for you. You just play this card and say, okay, we're just going to skip this fight. We're just going to basically skip a turn and we'll go to the next one, which means you can then play your ultimate and be a little bit closer in line. Hopefully your Black Gears or something or Spiritual Ring can catch you back up. So this is another one, and I kind of included all three of these at the end of the deck. You're just never going to play a Digi-Battle deck and not run these. Or at least I will never have a deck list that you will see from me that will not have these cards in it. I couldn't imagine not playing them. Just incredible support. Either way, that's the end of the deck. For the first time ever, Greymon Tribal is a thing, and Coromon is a huge part of why that's successful. Being able to give him extra power, and 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 him extra power. Like, just, that's so many cards that just get 50 extra points. And like I mentioned it in the baby video too, 50 points isn't that much, but 50 extra points can just be the difference between winning and losing a fight. You could be tied and well to fix it. 50 extra points is just enough. Or maybe you've got one of these weird ones with like 20 or 40, and that's going to just eke you over their number. 470, for example. Let's say you're at 340, and you go to 390. That's not going to beat 470, but now with 100-point card, now you're going to beat the 470. So you've just got like options like that can keep up with those powers. There's enough Greymon cards in, especially with the new support here. Granted, these are all, real cards that were not fan creations. There are kind of 4 core Greymon cards here, but you still get sort of stuck on this package isn't really enough to form a whole deck around. So adding in a couple extra Greymons along with a baby that gives all of these cards more power, is awesome. Adding an Agumon Bond of Bravery that jumps you from 0 to 300, from 300 to 6, from 6 to 9, incredibly fast is just outstanding. And the fact that you can play a Mega on turn 1 in this deck means that you're going to probably win fights for like multiple turns. That might even be enough to just win you the rest of the game. It's incredibly strong. And if worse comes to worse, Devimon is fine, and Agunimon is a dead end, but his powers are great, so it's really not the end of the world if you have to go into one of those, and that's a really beneficial thing. But Agamon and Tai are finally a deck that's like worth putting together and spending some time on. I think there's even probably a little more you could do with the options and stuff to make this deck even cooler. But for now, I'm really happy with where it ended up. It performed really well in our game. Granted, it was just playing against Diaboromon, which isn't a great deck, but it sure showed me the face of God a couple of times. I absolutely love playing this game. I love for as simple as it is, there's so much like nuance in building a deck and making sure the chains do what they're supposed to do to get you to where you're going. It's because you just get reduced all the way to your rookie every time you lose. Playing cards that guarantee that you're going to win a fight or get out of a fight you can't win is so important. And I just think that's really fun to be able to build around. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching through some of this Digi-Battle content. There isn't a ton of it online. The very little bit of it that does exist is the Digi-Dudes have some stuff. Shout out to them for being kind of the progenitors of this. Him and his son make some awesome, fun content. But most of the Digi-Battle content is all just people opening cards and throwing them in a binder. Anyone that knows me and this channel knows that the reason I like to collect these old games is to play them. I like to experience what a designer was thinking. Some of these cards, some of these games, you know, they're not great, but there is people whose job was to sit down and spend like months working on this. Someone's like life work is making one of these games. And I think that's really cool, especially as like an artist and game designer myself. It just inspires me so much to see what other people did, and it hurts my like soul to see all these games just get like lost to time. And someone spent time working on this, you know, and I just think it's cool that I think it's cool to experience what they were working on. Now, the fact that we've got 400 new cards through the next gen support has amplified this game even farther. As I mentioned before, a lot of them aren't new. They're just kind of not translations, they're transferals of cards from sets 3 through 6 onto these templates, which is the aesthetic I really like about this game. It's just opened up so much more of the gaming experience for me, and hopefully for other players too. I'm going to continue to make some more of these profiles as time goes on. Phil from Phil Plays, who helped me play the gameplay video you saw on this channel as well, has agreed to play some more of this with me as well, so you can expect more content there too. In the meantime, keep it real. Thanks for hanging out. Try playing some Digi-Battle. It's a dumb card game, but it's deceptively complex. Adios.